Or evening, everybody. This is another little impromptu one of these shamanic coffee hours. Hope everybody can hear me okay. I think so. Yeah, I can see my voice level going up. So I'm still getting used to this interface a little bit. So if you are joining me, thank you for doing that. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about spiritual awakening. Um, I'm going to try to not use sort of spiritual religious terms like enlightenment or Christ consciousness or whatever. I'm just talking about spiritual awakening. I'm going to try to divorce the topic a little bit from religion to be inclusive because you know I when I teach, I try to teach for everyone. I try to teach for the widest audience possible. I understand that not everybody's interested in my viewpoint or whatever. That's totally fine. But I try to make it so that we're not triggering people's preconceived beliefs, ideas, concepts, paradigms, all of these things. Although any learning requires a shift in belief, a shift in paradigm. So, well, let's get into it. Let's talk about spiritual awakening a little bit, and I'll talk about what I mean by that. And the first thing I will say about spiritual awakening is that I think there's this idea out there that is not a correct one. In my experience and experience of others in research that's been done, and yes, there is research that's done around spiritual awakening. They talk about it using other terms that are more scientific. So, spiritual awakening is something about a complete shift in our way of being, or a shift in a way that someone experiences the world. And I'll talk about its characteristics in a moment and what kind of things to look out for. Um, Talk about sort of the signs of going through a spiritual awakening. Sometimes it's a little bit rough, right? Um, but it's a shift, and there's this false idea that it's the same for everyone, and that's not true. And the other false idea about it is that you have a spiritual awakening, and you kind of stay at that level of consciousness, and that's not always true. In fact, most of the time, that's not true. Most of the time, we have an experience of awakening and then we go back to our normal state and like, oh, what happened? Um i i can't get that again. In fact, the spiritual teacher Adyashanti, who I like a lot, I think I would call his approach very zen like. He has a book, I can't remember the title of the book, but he has a book about that, and he talks about having these awakening experiences. And that can certainly happen, particularly if you're somebody who meditates or practices other form of spirituality. You can have awakening experiences during that or after that or spontaneously that don't last. And that can be very frustrating. Take it from me. That can be extremely frustrating. Like, what happened? Why can't I be like that always? Um, and I'll just say that that is, if you go through that, if you experience that, that's really, really normal. That's really something that lots and lots of people experience. Um, there are studies of, and there's scientific research around this sort of idea of spiritual awakening. It's called something different in scientific research, persistent non-symbolic experience or something like that. Um, That's fine. But in these studies, they show that people have, vastly different experiences, and there are, they people who've studied these things and categorized them and put them into matrices and things. They have 20 plus different layers of this thing and depth and all of this stuff. And if that's your bent, if you want to look at things from that perspective, by all means, that's great. Um, so let's talk a little bit about what we mean by spiritual awakening and some things to kind of look out for. And in some of the research, people have had awakening experiences but have dismissed them. They've, oh, yeah, but that wasn't spiritual awakening. Well, it was. It was just not necessarily as profound as you thought it was, or the clouds didn't open up and you didn't get sucked up into the sky, kind of thing. And that's okay too. Again, there's all kinds of ways this can be experienced, and um, sort of, I hate to say levels. It seems like a very pyramid scheme type of way of figuring that out, but levels, layers, locations, however you want to describe it, there are all kinds of different ways that this shows up. So let's talk a little bit about what I mean when I talk about spiritual awakening. And by the way, one scientific way of describing that is fundamental well-being. Because I don't want to talk about, science can't really describe spiritual experiences too well, and they can sort of say, well, you had an experience of non-duality, but what does that feel like? What does that experience like? So we'll talk about some of and these are not, I cannot catalog all of them in one single conversation, but let's talk about what some of the characteristics of spiritual awakening are. And you might recognize having had some of these experiences yourself. The first and primary one that I like to talk about, and this might or might not seem, again, sometimes people are looking for the dramatic experience, like complete absorption into the universe of the consciousness, and that can happen. That can happen, and it can be persistent or non-persistent. But the primary indicator, if I'm gonna, if somebody says, "Oh, I've gone through a spiritual awakening," what I'm gonna ask them about, if they want to talk about it, is there a fundamental feeling of well-being? Is there a fundamental feeling that underneath all of this drama that's out in the world, the drama that's happening with my body or with my interactions, is there this fundamental sense that everything is okay? Fundamental okayness, quote unquote. Um, that's a primary sign that no matter what the drama is that's going on here. Now, that comes in really really different degrees. Obviously, people who are, I had some powerful spiritual awakening experiences early on in my life, and then went down the rabbit hole of depression and anxiety and PTSD and all of these things. There was not that fundamental okayness. So those experiences for me at that time in my life were temporary, right? They can be persistent, they can last a long time, and then you can go back, or you can sort of stabilize at that level. And that's kind of what we're, if there's a goal to be had in spirituality, that's what we would shoot for. So there would be a fundamental okayness, a feeling, a sensation, um, along with that feeling that everything is fundamentally okay. Um, One might imagine that that would touch areas of your emotions, your personality, your beliefs, all of these things, right? It's not just a belief, it's not a psychological belief that everything is okay. It's the actual feeling that everything is okay just as it is. This is this is when applied to other people and things, and things like that. This is a feeling that I call love. Like, this is real spiritual love, a feeling when I look at another person and say, I accept and everything is okay about that person, no matter what it is, no matter what judgments might happen about behavior or whatever. This person is fundamentally okay, and I accept them for exactly who they are. And that's that is a profound, it's an exercise that you can do that will help move you towards awakening, as a matter of fact, is you can work on generating love feelings around the people you encounter. People you encounter are fantastic spiritual teachers. Everyone you encounter is a fantastic spiritual teacher, from the people who have caused you massive pain and problems to the spiritual teacher that you sit with and get lessons from. Everybody is a spiritual teacher, in that there are spiritual lessons that you can learn if you're just willing to. Okay, so there's fundamental okayness. That's one thing that happens. There's also a sense, and this again, this ranges widely. There's a sense of connection. There's a sense of um, being connected with everything else in the universe. Now, this ranges from a small sense of connection to being completely absorbed in universal consciousness from having non-dual experiences. And having experiences of non-duality are are not the end all and be all, even though some spiritual systems will tell you that that's it, that's the goal, that's the thing. And it seems to be that there, there may be no there may be no end to this experience of awakening. Um, there are spiritual systems that will describe very technical things. You have this experience, you have that experience, you've arrived, that's it, that's the end of the story. Um, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And so there's really no end to awakening. There's no, which is kind of nice, right? Like you can have this fantastic, amazing spiritual experience that leaves you changed, and understand that there's more than that. Understand that there you can go beyond that. You can, experience a persistent connection. Good morning. Hi. Thank you for joining in. We're talking about spiritual awakening this morning. If you've just tuned in, we're talking about how we sort of describe spiritual awakening, and separating that out from any sort of religious. And not, there's nothing wrong with religion. I'm not bashing religion in any way. I just want to make this accessible to the widest group of people possible. So the most sort of fundamental sign of spiritual awakening is an experience of a feeling of, not just an intellectual understanding of, that everything is fundamentally okay. That we're just, whatever's going on in the world is fine. The second one is this feeling of interconnectedness with the universe, and that ranges from just this inner feeling that I'm connected to everything, everything's connected to me, to um, to a complete non-dual absorption where I actually don't experience separation between myself and anything else. Now, along the way, one will, one's the way one perceives the universe can change pretty fundamentally. Um, I'm talking, sensory experience, even the way that I or you see the world, hear the world, experience the world. Yeah, you've been coming to the feeling recently. Yeah, so you're having an experience of spiritual awakening if you're coming to that feeling. And if it can come in and out, and that's normal. That happens to lots of people. There are books written about that. I can't. I wish I could remember the title of the book. There's an author, Adyashanti, who like a whole lot, very Zen-oriented teacher, who has written a book about exactly about that, about having these awakening experiences, and then coming out of them, and then trying to get them again. So, fundamental okayness, feeling of connection with the universe. The third thing I would talk about as sort of signs or awakening, and these are things you can go for. These are things that you can develop. If you know what you're looking to develop, you can go for these things. Is that the ego and I'll talk a little bit about what that is, loosens its hold on you, or you loosen your attachment to the ego. And the ego is a thing. It's not an evil thing. It's not a bad thing. You don't have to kill your ego. It's just the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are. It has to do with the narrative that's running in our head that feels like us, right? There's something called, very scientifically called the default mode network that runs in the background when we're not busy, focused, or meditating. And it's those thoughts that ruminate in our brain that come up, that memories that pop up. And part of this default mode network in the brain is connected to identity. So we think that these thoughts are us, but they're not. They're just thoughts. It's very organized noise, but it's noise. We are the experiencer of the thoughts, but we're not the thoughts. Okay. And so one of the things that happens during awakening is we start to loosen our attachment to ego, to our identity, right? I have a name, a label that my parents gave me when I was born, but that's not who I am. But very often we think, in English especially, we say I am our name. In other languages we say I am called, or people call, or whatever I call myself, um, which is a little more true on a fundamental spiritual level. So our we start to lose our attachment to ego, our identification with the ego. It's not that the ego is dangerous or useful or bad. It's just that it's a little bit of a trickster. It's there for the survival of this physical body, right? I can't, this physical body can't really navigate in this world without a sense of some separate identity. Um, but our over attachment to that identity keeps us from waking up, keeps us from realizing our true nature as a spiritual being underneath it all. So as we have these awakening experiences, we kind of our individual identity comes in and out. We see our connectedness to the universe. The narrative that's running in our head might quiet down quite a bit. Um, it might go away at sometimes, or we might just not identify it as us. One of the practices in many spiritual systems is taking witness consciousness, which is, you either do it in meditation or you can just do it throughout the day, when you sit and just watch your thoughts and let them pass through your mind like clouds in the sky, as they say. And you don't cling to them and you don't push them away. You just witness them. And this helps to identify more with the witness than with the thoughts. Identifying with our thoughts is a rabbit hole that will take us away from awakening pretty significantly. So we've got the fundamental sense that things are okay. We've got this interconnectedness with all things, the sense that we're connected to everything in the universe. At some of the higher levels of awakening, the experience is that you are the universe. You are the universe. You're the entire universe observing things through these eyes. That's the best way I can describe it. But that's sort of that's sort of what's there. Um, at lower levels, um, I hate to use the word levels. When I use the word levels, we get very attached to hierarchy, and I don't love hierarchy, but I don't have a better words for this at this point. Um, at other at other levels, we just sort of like we're observing. There's a great book, or series of books actually, but the great book I really enjoy. I believe the author's name is Harding. It's either D.E. Harding, Dennis Harding. I can't remember his first name. A little bit of memory try this morning. Harding, but his book is called On Having No Head. And I absolutely love it. I love the practice, they call the headless practice. which is different than the headless rite that comes from the Egyptian magic or the Greek magical papyrus, excuse me. Um, it's different than that. It's different than the bornless ritual. This is the idea that we can never really observe our own head and that we become this spacious being from back here. And I would say spaciousness is a really good the experience of spaciousness, the experience of that we're holding space for all experience to arise. That's what consciousness is. Consciousness is spacious. And so an awakening experience allows us to identify more closely with consciousness, with the field in which experience arises. This, the individual consciousness in Sanskrit is called Atman. And in some schools, in some Vedic schools, they would say Atman is Brahman, meaning the individual consciousness is the global or universal consciousness. We're just individuated forms of that, um, parts of that, experiences of that. We're having an individual experience, but we are no different than the source of the universe. Source consciousness, another indication of awakening. Now, there's a lot of stuff that goes along with all of these major indicators, and they can happen in different ways. One is a sense of peace, again, that comes from maybe that feeling that fundamental well-being, that all is well in the world. Another is this sense of love towards other beings. Um, again, this is part of experiencing all is well with the world, but also our interconnectedness. The fact that when I see you or you see me, we are just sort of seeing individuated versions of ourself, the same oversoul, the same, we have when you have an experience of that, it puts a lot of things in perspective, changes your perspective. You'll have changes in emotion. You'll have uh all of these physical things like less stress, okay, less attachment to the body, less fear of death or no fear of death, physical death, because it's just a thing, it's just a phase. Consciousness never goes away. It has different experiences, but it never goes away. So anyway, I just want to talk briefly a little bit on spiritual awakening. If if you're interested in pursuing and having an experience of awakening or deepening experiences of awakening you're having, I am at the end of March, the end of this month, I'm teaching a 1 hour, or I should say, not teaching really, but leading a 1 hour experience called A Taste of Awakening, A Taste of Spiritual Awakening. If you go to my website, which is linked in the description here, you can either currently, there's a little bar across the top that you can click on that will give you information. It's absolutely free. I'm not selling anything during the seminar whatsoever. It's just a thing that I'm doing. If you're absolutely interested in that, or if you're interested at all, it's only an hour, but I'm going to lead you through a number of different experiences that might give you a taste of awakening, or if you're having an experience of awakening already, it might help you deepen that experience. I've been working really hard on developing this process. Now it's only an hour, so it's not like going to a 7-day meditation retreat, but oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you for joining me. I love doing this. This is one way that I get to talk to people all over the world, and in case you couldn't tell, I love to talk to people. And I love to talk to people about this stuff. So yeah, if you're interested, you can click on my website. You can go to the calendar section. There's something, I think it's March 29th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I was trying, if that time doesn't work for you, I'm sorry. But the seminar will be recorded and available, and it's absolutely free. It's on Learn It Live. It's part of their spring symposium. And you know, it will give you, instead of just me talking, it'll be an actual series of meditative experiences. So thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm going to do more of these. I'm going to try to schedule them so people can know about them in advance. I've been playing with this new software, this new streaming software to allow me to talk over multiple channels at once. And I'm just getting used to it. And I haven't scheduled anything yet. I haven't tried the scheduling feature in that, but I'm going to. I'm going to do that, and perhaps I will do that. Perhaps I will do that today. Perhaps I'll schedule something for Thursday or Friday. Thank you for joining me. If you've joined in, it's very nice to talk to you, and I hope this has been interesting. And stay happy and healthy.